Hello, hello. All right. So some people were saying that a walkthrough of how to set up a Unity environment for Nebulous Fleet Command modding would be helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through the my test CIC example in that, and also additionally show how to find, install, and utilize AGMs Toolkit, because it's a very helpful tool for modding Nebulous. So first thing, you need to get your Unity downloaded. The guide itself does cover how to do this. It gives you a link to unity3d.com where you're going to need to go. I use Unity Hub. It recommends you use Unity Hub. Then you specifically need the version that is 20.3.19.f1. This is the version that Nebulous runs on, so it's what you need to use. Once you have that, though, you get here basically. You won't have these projects. Obviously, these are my mod projects, but what you do is you hit New Project. This will open up a list of projects. You're looking for this 3D sample scene high definition render pipeline. There is no just plain empty high definition render pipeline. So what you have to do is you have to take it. We'll name this the My CIC project or the Test CIC project. And then you can name this whatever you want, whatever you want your mod name to be. This does not matter. Once the project is created, you're going to need to clean it up a bit. It'll take a moment to start. There's going to be a whole demo that basically gets loaded. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to remove the demo so we have a clean high definition render pipeline to work with. Alright, so here it is. Here is the demo scene. It's going to take a moment to load. You can see there's all this stuff in the sample scene. There's all these assets, these resources. You want to actually keep the resources. But there's all this stuff here that we do not want in our mod because A, it won't work as a mod, and B, it's a lot of data that's really not useful for what we want. None of this is what you want in the mod. So we're going to come through here, and you can just delete the lighting, you can delete the prop, you just click on it and hit the del button on your keyboard. So now we have an empty sample scene. You also want to come into the sample scene assets and delete that. Delete that whole folder. And then once you come into scenes here, you also can delete the sample scene. And what I do generally as like a right away thing is I come in, I do a new scene, and I just name it workplace. And then you can delete the sample scene, and then you just save, and then you have a workplace where you can delete the camera and the directional light, and then you know for sure you have a clean scene and that you didn't miss anything. So go ahead and save that. Now that you have your empty scene, we need to move on to setting up the environment for Nebulous modding. So what you're going to want to do here is, one of the first things you're going to do is go into your, you want to change your C# runtime so you can run any DLLs, the game DLLs. So what you need to do is you go to your the Edit tab, the project settings in here. It's going to look like this. I'm already in player. You may need to come down to player. And then what you're going to look for is you're going to come down here and you see the .NET standard. You want that .NET for .x as stated. Make sure this is on mono. That's all you need to do. You close this, you save your project. Now for that to take effect, you do actually need to restart your project. So just close it, reopen it, and then that'll be in effect. Next, you structure your project. Now, you don't actually need to use the exact structure that is stated in the guide. That is just helpful for your first mod to have them very cleanly laid out, because other people will be referencing those folders as stated in the guide when trying to help you. But you can name it whatever. You don't have to name it bundle. It can be like Test CIC folder, as long as you're using it as your bundle and you set the pathing for that. But we're not going to worry about that. What we're going to do is we're going to follow the guide exactly. So you come into here, we want a new folder. This one's going to be called bundle. We want another folder. This one's going to be called editor. This one will become relevant shortly. We're going to want another folder as well called lib. It has to be exactly lib, otherwise things don't automatically find the pathing and they will break. It mentions the working scene in the guide, which I have already established as a workplace, and then scripts. This won't be important unless you are doing custom scripting, but it's good to just set it up to get into the habit of doing so. Okay, so the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get the DLLs from Nebulous into your project so that you can use the built-in scripts to create your mod. This is going to be very important for most mods, for all mods really, and so you're going to need to be able to get these. This is what the lib folder is for. The way you get these is you go to your Steam, you go to your Nebulous, you go to Properties, Local Files, you browse, and then what you're going to want to do is you come into Nebulous Data, Managed, and then here you have all these DLLs. Now, what you really should do is you sort by type, so you get these DLLs, and then you come back to your project. You're going to go to lib and then open, right-click, Show in Explorer. This will let you have your library open, and this will let you have your manage. Now, I'll put up a list of the mods that you need, but basically, you're going to want FacePunch Steamworks. You're going to want KCP2K.dll. You're going to want Mirror.dll. You're going to want Nebulous.dll. You're going to want PriorityQ.dll. You're going to want this KFSW, but not the demo. That's a mistake I almost just made there. The QC.dll. You're going to want QuickGraph all and core. You're going to want QuickGraph serialization. You're going to want rsg.promise. You're going to want shapes runtime. You're going to want telepathy. I probably said that wrong, but you get what I'm saying. You want UI extensions, Unity addressables, Unity resource manager, Vectrosy, which I definitely can't say. I'm going to blame my dyslexia, but it's more that I'm probably just stupid. And then you're going to want xnode.dll. Once you have all this, you should have all the libraries you need. You can then go back in your project. It'll take a moment to import these libraries, and then they'll appear in the lib folder, which puts you one step closer to being ready to start working on your project. Oh boy, hold on. Okay, so I was going to cut and figure out what this issue is, but I'm actually going to leave this in because it's a good example of how to read Unity errors and how to figure out what's wrong with what you've done. So we got these errors. It could not load signature of this DLL because it couldn't find where allocations. Now, if I look at what I added, we're going to see I don't have a DLL called where allocations. However, there is a where allocations DLL in the managed of Nebulous. So if we go ahead and copy that over, we compile these scripts again, and then if we were to reboot our project here, we're going to hopefully see that that error has disappeared. This is the kind of thing it's going to happen if you're making mods. You're going to have errors, and you're going to have to try to mess with them. See, no errors in consoles, and we have fixed that issue. So I'm not going to go over the what you can mod. That is covered very well in the guide. I'm not going to walk through that. However, I will continue walking through with the other components of the mod. So, you're going to need asset bundles. That is what a mod really is composed of. It's composed of an asset bundle. Asset bundles are created using that script located within the Discord. Now we're going to go and we're going to create that script together, but while we're in the Discord, we're also going to pick up another thing, which is AGMs Toolkit. So we're going to go over that. So you want to come to Editor, And then we're going to create a new script. First, we're going to pop over to Nebulous. We're going to go to the mod development channel, and we'll go onto the guide. Scroll down to the script, and all you need to do for this script is copy the whole thing, go back over to your project, create C# script. We need to name it very specifically. One moment. I'm just going to check to make sure I spell this correctly. I believe it is create asset bundles. So you name it very specifically, create asset bundles. That's because it's going to call for that in the script. That's what I was just checking really quickly. I recommend you have a program like Microsoft Visual Studio just to work on these. It makes it much easier to read. However, this is kind of up to program of choice. I just highly recommend Visual Studio. And we want to replace the code with our script. Now, this is how you know it wanted to be called create asset bundles, is because that's what it's calling it in the string, and it's looking for assets, asset bundles. So you just want to make sure it's called that. Once that's done, you can close that. It'll reload the script assemblies. And what we should notice is that if we go to tools now, there is asset build asset bundles. So that is how you are going to build your asset bundle to actually put into the mod. Alright, and while we are in here, before we get to the manifest, I did quickly want to go through this. So if you go to the pins message, you're going to see a message from AGM here talking about AGMs Toolkit. Now this is an incredibly useful tool. I recommend you pick it up. All you need to do is you download this file, and then you place it in your editor section here. You just place it in here. I already have it downloaded, so I'm going to very quickly rip it from a different mod. You just download it from here, you put it in here like this, and then when you load in, you're going to see a new tab called AGMs Toolkit. This will become important later. I'm going to use it for this example. The one thing I say is this does have a setup button. Do not click the setup button. It is currently, as of the time of making this, non-functional, and it will actually create issues with your mod. Now, we need to create a manifest.xml file. I'm going to go ahead and pull one from a different mod once again, just to show what that looks like. Pardon me, it's not under asset bundles, it's under bundles. So you see the manifest.xml, you put it under your bundle, and what this is you just create a text asset. You literally manually do this. You just right click, new, and then text document, and you name it manifest.xml in your bundle. And then once you have that and you can open it up, this is what this looks like for a different mod that I have. This is a very simplified one. Now, it goes into detail on the guide on exactly what all these things mean. I suggest that you read it. I'm not going to go exactly into details. I'm going to use this manifest as we create this mod. But I'm not going to go into details of exactly what all these categories mean. The main thing to note is that the pathing here, if you have changed your pathing from the bundle, you need to update this section. It needs to have the correct pathing. The namespace can be whatever your mod is. So we're going to name this my CIC. And then these, you'll have to make a component entry that is in this layout. You don't want to have it with these. Obviously, this is for a different mod. And then it just ends the bundle manifest. You leave these as they are. Now, getting into this with the manifest now, we are able to start building our mod. Now, once you have this, we're going to create an empty game object. You come to game object, create empty. We're going to name this test CIC. And then what you do is you add component. Now, there's a lot in here, and you really don't need to worry that much about it. For the CIC, as it says in the guide, you want a command component. So you search it up and it will appear here, and it'll have everything you need to start working. If this does not appear, your libraries are not set up correctly, restart your Unity and then come back, relaunch it, and see if any errors throw. If errors aren't throwing, then I would either retry to get your DLLs from your Nebulous, or ask the mod development channel for help. But we're going to move on. So here's our CIC. You have all these stats. If you play Nebulous, you're familiar with a lot of these. Max health you're familiar with, damage threshold you're familiar with, point cost. This is everything you need to make a CIC. Now, some of these things you do not really need to worry about. The stuff with the unique debuffs, don't worry about that. I actually will create a guide on those, but that's something later. Resources provided and required are things like power. Modifiers are what we are going to use and what most components are going to use. Bind to tag, you don't need to worry about for CICs. This is for things like reactors or radars or thrusters, where they bind to tag. So like an engine binds to tag thruster, a radar binds to the radar panels. This just makes it connect to those other components. But with the CIC, we're not going to worry about that for now. Just know that's what they do. So we're going to make our CIC, and we are going to make this incredibly overpowered. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the health 500. It'll function at 1 HP, so this is basically at what point does the module turn red, as you would see it in Nebulous, and stop functioning even if it's not destroyed. And then damage threshold's familiar. We're going to go with 50. We'll reinforce it. This just gives it the reinforced tag. We're not binding it to anything. Damage control priority. This is what the damage control teams, this helps the AI know where to send them. As a CIC, you're going to want it to be critical. Casualty class is something similar. It's for the damage control director. Combat systems are things that help you immediately fight. Engineering is for things that keep the ship working. Fire is if it is basically only prioritize this compartment if it's on fire, and then decompression is basically only prioritize this compartment if it is if it's been criticaled, basically. These last two are a bit confusing. I'm still not fully sure of them myself. The two that matter are combat systems or engineering. You're going to tag this as engineering. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about the disabled particles. That's for turrets, really. Short UI name is just whatever is going to get called on the damage control board. We're going to leave it as is. Faction key is if you want to stick it specifically onto a certain faction. So, for instance, only Alliance or only Prism or only Quaper. We're not going to worry about that. Short description, this is what shows up at the top of the bar next to the points. So we will make this a command center. Description, short and flavor text. This is the normal description. This is the italicized description. That's usually for lore bits. Category, this is where it will appear in the module list. We're going to name it command. It'll be in the command category. Compounding cost is, you'll see that for things, typically stronger modules or things like magazines. We don't want that for this module, but that's what you do. We'll make it cost, 50 points. This is something to note. This is where it mounts. Surface mounts are outside. Compartments are compartment mounts, and modules are like those square mounts. This is a compartment because it's a CIC. We'll make it a 6x1x3. No interior overhang. That's more for things like VLS tubes where they actually have a required depth. We'll make it 5 tons. And rotate to fit on any axis. Now this is basically this won't matter that much for most compartments. But for instance, ships like Prism have vertical placing. And for instance, a compartment may be 3x1x6, and if you have it on none, it won't fit. If it's on up only, it'll allow on vertical, but not on horizontal. And if it's any axis, it'll allow on any axis. We're going to leave it on any axis for now. Tiling is things like the berthing or the magazine giving more for a required size. And now here we are with modifiers. This is where AGMs Toolkit will come in handy because it has this information tab. This is every modifier really in the game. There is some minor exceptions to this. For instance, if we come to to discrete weapon, which is things like cannons, there's discrete weapon reload. This will affect things like the 450, 250, and 120 millimeter gun. What it will not affect is things like railguns. You need to do discrete weapon reload : energy for that. But for our CIC here, we're going to make it have damage control teams move faster. Oh wow, the damage control category. Okay, sorry, yes, it's under the damage control category. And we are going to make this, so we add a modifier, and what you do is you put in the stat name of whatever it is in here. Now, there's two things, literals and modifiers. Literals are direct values. You typically don't want to touch those if you can help it. They break things. And the modifier is at 0%, and 1 is 100%. So if we want to add, say, a 0.5, they will move 50% faster. And if we add another category and we go repair speed, they will now repair 50% faster. And while we're at it, we'll also go ahead and go into comms, and we'll give a comms gain, just as an example of a literal, where you'd want 10. This will add 10 decibels to your gain. Resources required, for instance, we want this to take power. So we say power, and we say 450 units worth. And that'll take 450 units of power when operating. Crew required, this is pretty self-explanatory. We'll say 10. The job name will be, I forget what it's called in base game. Sometimes you are going to have to reference the in-game stats to see what something's called. You can also use AGMs Toolkit to actually look directly at modules within this. But we'll just name it commanders. I know that's not what it's called in base game, but we'll do that. This is for the intel. We're not going to touch that, just for scope. I know I've spent quite a lot of time talking about the different parts of this, but that's because this is where you will spend the majority of your time, is looking at these stats. So now that we have this, what we're going to want to do is drag it from the workspace into our bundle. That'll create a prefab. You can now remove it from your workspace, and note it'll still be there. Now what you need to do is go to this and create an asset bundle. We will name it test bundle. Okay, or it'll be a little buggy. Sometimes you do need to try a few times. We'll name it test CIC. So now that it's in the asset bundle test CIC, what we're going to want to do is I named it my CIC. Well, that's okay. So we come into here and we'll name this just test CIC, and then we will go ahead, take our test CIC, put it in here, test CIC, and its address is going to be test CIC.prefab. I'm going to remove these other two components because they are not here. And that is now your asset bundle. You want to add, I believe, the manifest. Yes, you add the manifest to the asset bundle as well. Come into Tools, Asset, Build Asset Bundle. It'll process for a moment, and then it will spit out a completed asset bundle into a folder under Assets called Asset Bundles. This is what you need for your mod. So now you have your asset bundle, and you want to get it into the game. Now we're going to need to go back to the guide directly again, and we're going to want to come down to the packaging your mod. Now there's going to be this, which is you're going to want to copy this, and I'll actually go through this because I didn't go through the process of manually creating it before. But you go to your Nebulous, you browse your local data, you come to the mods folder. You're going to want to create a new folder, and you can name it whatever. We'll name it test CIC just for the sake of this. And then once you're in here, you're going to want a new text document. And you're going to want to name it mod info .xml. Once you're inside it, you take that text that we copied, you paste it, you save it, and here you go. So mod name, this can be whatever you want your mod to be named. We're going to name it the test CIC. The description was already provided. It adds the best test CIC in the game. The mod version is going to be 1. And then for your string, you need to, under the assemblies here, for the string, we don't have any assemblies because we didn't create any custom assemblies. But what we do have is an asset bundle. So you come to your mod, you look, what do you name it? Test CIC, you type that in here. It is case sensitive, and you save. That's all you need to do for the mod info. And then what you do is you go to your bundle, not the other mod, this mod's bundle. And now if we go to our asset bundles, we're going to have all these things. And what you want to add is you want to add the thing that's named after your asset bundle and its manifest. So you add this over, and then if we go ahead and launch Nebulous, it should be there as a local mod. Okay, now that Nebulous is booted, we're going to open up our mods. We're going to scroll past all of the mods I have installed. Don't worry that much about it. And we see the test CIC. Now, I didn't set the game version. That's something that I had forgotten to do. So all you need to do to fix that is you go to your My Mod Info, and then you add. So all you need to do to fix it saying this version mismatch is you add a line called gamever, and you type in the game version. The game version is currently 0.2.2. You can ignore this last bit. That's minor updates. You just want the major updates. And then you go to your, not your Unity project, you go to your mod, you go to your test CIC, you open up, not that, you open up this, and you just add this little line in. That will fix this issue upon next reboot. We're going to go ahead and enable the mod. Okay, so there was errors loading the mod. That's just because I forgot to remove the mymod.dll from the mod info. So if you do not take that out, you will have errors. Just simply remove it. That's something that I simply forgot. However, if we come in to this here, we will see our test CIC is here. It takes power, it takes crew, it has all the team stats. It requires 10 command crew, which is actually correct. The default crew are called command crew. And with that, you have your first modded item. If you are ever confused, feel free to ask myself, Tuna9689 on the Discord, or ask other members of the Nebulous modding community. We're always happy to help. Hopefully this walkthrough itself does help, even if I may have gone on a few tangents. And just remember, everything's a mystery until it isn't. So if you can't figure something out, just keep trying until you either figure it out or you get really stuck and then ask, because someone else has probably been there, struggled through the same thing, and found an answer. And if not, you can be that person. I hope this helps, and have a good day.